Michael in traffic to Kerr. 15-footer.
From playing alongside Michael Jordan and the Chicago Bulls, to coaching the Golden State Warriors to 4 championship titles, Steve Kerr has done it all, as a player and as a coach. However, his private life and his lifestyle aren't what you expected. Early life. Believe it or not, Steve Kerr didn't grow up in the USA. He was born in Beirut to Malcolm H. and Ann Kerr. His father was an academic who specialized in the Middle East. He spent his childhood in Lebanon and other Middle Eastern countries. Sadly, his surroundings were anything but safe. Bombings were not uncommon, and people lived in fear every day. In one particular bombing, when the airport was closed, Steve left Beirut and fled to Damascus, and then to Jordan. His father, fearing for his son's safety, said, "I'm fearful that all this uncertainty and inconvenience, not to mention even a sense of physical danger, has not done Steve's image of Beirut much good. And in his present mood, he wonders what any of us are doing here." His father, Malcolm, was the president of the American University of Beirut. A few months later, his father was shot twice in the back outside his university office. At the time of his father's assassination, Steve was already 18 years old, and he was a freshman at the University of Arizona. When asked about his father, Kerr recalled the 1978 peace talks between Israel and Egypt. When returning home from baseball practice with his friend and his dad, Marvin, his dad came running out of the house yelling, "Marvin, Marvin, did you see the news today? The presidents are photographed together." His dad was so excited because, according to Steve, Middle Eastern peace. That was his dream. I'll never forget that day. That was the legacy of his father, the legacy of fighting against injustice, the legacy of empathy toward all human beings, and the legacy of voicing an opinion through the medium of basketball. Kerr would often talk about a lot of things besides basketball, like gun control, national anthem protests, presidential politics, and Middle Eastern policy. Steve educated himself on modern Middle Eastern history, on World War II and the Holocaust, and the creation of Israel in 1948, the Six-Day War in 1967, peace accords, and the Israel-Palestine conflict, the war in Iraq, and much more. He learned so he could honor the legacy of his father and continue to spread empathy and understanding in a world already divided by culture, race, religion, and other circumstances. Steve's grandparents, Stanley and Elsa Kerr, were American missionaries who met in the Middle East after World War I. They married and moved to Lebanon to run orphanages. They later continued to teach at the American University of Beirut for 40 years. After his father's death, Steve zoned in on basketball. His team was 2-11, but they won their next 8 out of 14 games. Steve helped the Wildcats reach the Final Four of the 1988 NCAA tournament. In the season of 87-88, Kerr set an NCAA single-season record for three-point percentage with 57.3%. Kerr graduated from the University of Arizona with a Bachelor of General Studies with emphasis on history, sociology, and English. NBA. We all know that Steve Kerr played with Michael Jordan on the Chicago Bulls, but he was actually drafted by the Phoenix Suns. He was then traded to the Cleveland Cavaliers, and then he spent a season with the Orlando Magic. Lastly, in 1993, he signed with the Chicago Bulls. With the Bulls, he won 3 championships, and in the 1997 NBA Finals, where they played against their nemesis, the Utah Jazz, Kerr scored a title-winning shot, which helped the Bulls beat the Jazz in the 6th game. That year, Kerr also won the three-point contest during the All-Star weekend. After the Jordan era, Kerr was traded to the San Antonio Spurs in 1999. There, he won 2 more championships, and he became the second player in modern basketball history to win 4 straight NBA titles. After the Spurs, Kerr was traded to the Portland Trail Blazers, but the next season he returned to San Antonio and ended his career there after the Spurs won the title in 2003. In his career, he played 910 regular season games. He holds the record for single-season three-point shooting percentage, 0.524, and career three-point shooting percentage, 0.454. After his NBA career, he worked as a broadcast analyst and commentator, and in 2007, he became the general manager for the Phoenix Suns. After playing under legendary coaches like Phil Jackson and Greg Popovich, from whom he surely learned a lot, in 2014, Kerr signed to become the head coach of the Golden State Warriors. Teamed up with Steph Curry, Klay Thompson, and Draymond Green, Kerr won 4 championships with the Warriors, creating one of the strongest dynasties in modern basketball history. He became the first head coach in NBA history to lead his team to 67 or more wins in 3 consecutive seasons. Personal life. When he was playing basketball in college, his friend, Bruce Frazier, set Kerr up on a blind date. It turned out to be the love of his life. He met Margot in 1980. They married 3 years after they graduated, and they have been together for almost 40 years. They have 3 children together, Nick, Madeline, and Matthew. Nick played college basketball and went on to become a member of the coaching staff with the San Antonio Spurs. Madeline played volleyball at the University of California. Kerr is also an avid soccer fan, and his favorite club is Liverpool FC. Even though he bought a fabulous mansion in San Francisco worth $7.35 million in 2018, his lifestyle is moderate, and he lives like a regular person. The only expensive thing he owns is an Audi Q8, which he sometimes drives to work. He is a known philanthropist, and in remembrance of his father, he established a scholarship fund for the poor and needy students in East Bay. He is also a supporter of the movement Black Lives Matter. It's hard to believe, but Steve loves yoga. He practices it whenever he catches time, and he even made it mandatory for the Warriors on a few occasions. Steve said that doing yoga midday is the only time he gets to focus on deep breathing and relinquish the pressure of his hectic NBA schedule. Kerr is also very included in politics and activism. He has been publicly criticizing Donald Trump and his insults against minorities and women. After the school shootings in Texas, Kerr was furious and devastated and started yelling, "When are we gonna do something about it?" referring to the gun control legislation, which the government still hasn't changed. His 4 core values in life are joy, mindfulness, compassion, and competition. Number 1. Joy. Kerr believes that playing the 82 games of an NBA season can be very grueling and tiresome, especially if you're not having fun. His star, Steph Curry, always expressed his love for the game. Heck, he can even be seen dancing on the court. Kerr always emphasized the sense of humor in the locker room. He wants every day to be fun. Number 2. Mindfulness. Steve believes that when you're mindful, when you're aware of what's going on around you, then you can be grateful for the opportunity to play the game, make a living, and have a great time. Kerr frequently brings in other people to talk to his players, to change their perspectives and make them more humble. Mindfulness for them is the focus that is needed in every practice, in every action, and in every detail. Yoga also helps. Number 3. Compassion. When you're interested in your players, when you appreciate their sacrifice, that is the result of empathy and compassion. Kerr always emphasized compassion as the key to forming a team of players who are there to support each other. One fist bump or a high five could mean the world to someone who is struggling. Number 4. Competition. When you're competing, you need to have a drive and intensity that pushes you beyond your limits. Then you have to deal with injuries, trades, fans, all the challenges that present themselves to you. To succeed at that level, you have to love to compete. In every practice, shooting competition, scrimmage, or drill, you have to strive to be the best. That is Kerr's philosophy. I think Phil Jackson and Greg Popovich are smiling inside, knowing that there is someone who follows their philosophy and who continues their legacy of inspiring others. And that wholesome and awesome person is Steve Kerr.